This makes me want to review Rakudai Kishi. Rakudai Kishi, or Rakudai Kishi no Cavity for long, is an anime adaptation of a light novel about a world where there are special people called Blazers, who summon weapons called devices, which get their power and form from the user's soul. This is a romance fantasy story following the two main characters, Stella, a foreign princess, and Iki, the nobody with no ability to be a Blazer outside of being able to summon a sword and minor physical enhancement. Our story starts out at Hugan Academy as we see a man dejectedly getting dressed while listening to government propaganda, then going outside and running while dejectedly monologuing about how the strong rule the weak. And then, to really nail the point home, they show him as a kid in a snowstorm getting a pep talk from an old man who calls himself the weakest. This is Iki, a hardworking Blazer with none of the talents and abilities that Blazers have. The only thing that makes him a Blazer is his ability to summon a device, which is just a regular-ass sword. This in turn makes everyone think of him as the weakest Blazer, when in fact, due to his hardworking spirit, he trained his body and weapon to the point where he can fight on par with even the strongest of Blazers. He is your typical male protagonist. His personality only really consists of the fact that he is nice. However, he does have an interesting backstory that gets introduced later, so I guess he isn't your typical male protagonist. He's your typical male protagonist with a backstory. Next up is Stella. Now her introduction is interesting. After Iki finishes his morning training, he sees a pair of shoes in his room which weren't there before. However, Iki thinks nothing of this and continues walking. Now this is the first sign that he's not a very smart man, but he can summon a sword out of nowhere, so I guess he's confident in fighting any danger that occurs. After walking to the bedroom, he sees Stella naked except for her underwear, and unfortunately, he's no Yuji, and makes his second, even bigger blunder. Let's just play a game, shall we? Does Iki Kurogne, after walking in on a woman in his apartment, A, apologize and leave? She won't go anywhere, and she isn't quite in a state for questions, so you can ask them later. B, say, girl, you a milkshake without milk. You thick, reasonable, may get you laid. Or C, rant about how you did see her titties and offer to make it up to her by taking off your clothes, basically just making it look like you want to violate her personal space. And she thinks this is her room and you just broke in, and after seeing and acknowledging she is naked, decide to start taking your clothes off, which is one of the steps required for penetration, which she both doesn't want and now thinks you are trying to do. But anywho, we meet Stella, who is very understandably slaps the pervert who started stripping when he saw her in her room. Stella is a princess and the main focus of the government propaganda from earlier, and she is shown to be a little spoiled from the princess life as she orders Iki to kill himself in a rather gruesome way for walking in on her. Which, I mean, he did walk in on her and then started stripping, and fearing for your chastity could cause psychological trauma, but suicide is a little far, mainly because it was accidental and nothing actually happened. She is also a powerful and talented Blazer. However, much like Iki, she is shown to still be a hard worker despite having all the natural talent. She has much less interesting backstory than Iki, but titties, so character-wise, they're even. Chivalry is dead. One of the strongest parts of Rakudai Kishi is the fights, as the animation, choreography, different abilities, and subtext are all done well. But it's not done subtly for a lot of fights, but it is there, which is more than a lot of shows can say. These things are what make up a good fight, and are all done well in Rakudai Kishi, which makes for legitimately interesting fights. Iki, while not being on Yuji's level, is an above-average main character with an interesting backstory, and Stella is a cute tsundere-himideri mix, and a slightly interesting take on the talented genius, where she is someone who values and respects hard work despite being a genius Blazer, who could have become strong without working hard at all, but she pushes herself nonetheless. All in all, Rakudai Kishi is a love story between a girl who is seen to be the most talented of geniuses, and a guy who is thought to be the lowest of the low, the worst one. The interactions between the pair are often pretty cute, and while neither is the most interesting individual character I've ever seen, they have good chemistry and are a cute couple. Add on a great and meaningful fight scenes, and you get all around pretty good show. That really surprises me, especially with the quality of its fights. Like, subscribe, ring the bell! Also, don't view the video on loop. That I figured out that doesn't work, so yeah, don't do that. And also comment down below, see what anime you guys want next, or like, give me funny shit so I can find a quote, because it's hard to find quotes. Also, oh yeah, that's, I'm done with that. Thank you, Anime Lee, out.